All right, let's talk about Manipur. In this northeastern state of India, a new government was supposed to be a good thing, a step towards peace. But instead, it kicked off a storm of fury on the streets. So today, on The Explainer, we're going to dig into exactly why that happened.
There's this saying, calm on the surface, crisis beneath. And honestly, that just nails what's going on in Manipur. For about a year, things were quiet. But it was a tense kind of quiet, right? The kind you get from direct rule by the central government. And as we're about to find out, under that surface, a whole lot of anger was just simmering, ready to boil over. And this is where it gets really strange. I mean, think about it. For almost a whole year, there's no local government. Then, finally, a new one gets sworn in, and they're all about promising peace. So what happens next? Boom! Violent clashes, shutdowns. It makes you ask, why on earth would people react with so much rage to getting their own government back? Okay, so to get to the bottom of all this fury, we've got to start with the politics of it all. So, in February 2026, after nearly a year of what's called president's rule, which is basically when the central government takes direct control, Manipur finally gets its own local government again. And everyone thought, okay, this is it. This is the first big step back to normal. Now, take a look at how this new government was set up. On paper, it looks perfect, like a textbook example of reconciliation. You've got the chief minister from the majority Meitei community, and then you have two deputies. One is Kuki-Zo, and the other is Naga. The whole idea was to make sure all the major groups were represented, to build some bridges. So what could possibly go wrong? Well, it turns out a lot. The reality on the ground was the complete opposite of what they hoped for. Instead of bringing people together, the whole thing was met with this instant, fierce backlash. And this was especially true in the hill areas, where the Kuki-Zo people live. And we're not just talking about some angry tweets or political arguments here. This got physical fast. In a district called Charachanpur, protests blew up into full-on street battles. We're talking mobs throwing stones, security forces firing tear gas, and this went on for 9 straight hours, all through the night. Just total chaos. So the big question is why? Why were people this angry? Well, a really powerful group, the Kuki-Zo Council, came out and announced a social boycott against their own elected officials for even joining this new government. To them, this wasn't a peace deal. It was a massive betrayal of everything their community had fought for and sacrificed. Yeah, you don't get that level of anger just out of the blue. To really understand why a power-sharing deal, something that sounds good, is seen as a betrayal, we have to go back. We need to look at the absolutely devastating ethnic violence that ripped the state apart just a little while ago. Right, so let's talk about the wounds of 2023. The violence that kicked off in May of that year, it wasn't just some small fight. It was a total, catastrophic breakdown of society. And everything that happened then, it set the stage for the political drama we're watching unfold right now. The numbers are just staggering. More than 260 people were killed. This conflict between the Meitei community, who mostly live in the valley, and the Kuki-Zo tribes in the hills was absolutely brutal. It shattered families, it destroyed entire communities, and on top of the lives lost, get this, over 60,000 people had to run for their lives, forced out of their own homes. Imagine that. They lost everything, their houses, their jobs, any sense of safety. They basically became refugees in their own state. And if that wasn't enough, the state was cut off from the world. For more than 200 days, the internet was just gone. It was one of the longest internet shutdowns in India's history, and it crippled everything: communication, business, just normal daily life. Manipur was completely isolated. The violence got so bad and the local government was so completely unable to handle it that the whole system just collapsed. The chief minister ended up resigning. That's when the central government had to step in and impose president's rule, just to try and get some kind of order back. But here's the thing. This conflict, these tensions, they didn't just pop up out of nowhere in 2023. No way. The roots of this go deep. I mean, way back into the region's history. We're talking centuries of different kingdoms, colonial-era policies, and decisions made after independence that all played a part. And this timeline here really lays out those historical fault lines. See, for centuries, the valley and the hills were pretty much one integrated unit. But then, look at 1891. The British came in and administratively split them apart. Fast forward to 1949, there's a controversial merger with India. Then in 1960, you get new land laws. all of this just cemented the divide, and it created these competing claims over land, resources, and power that are still causing problems today. So beyond all the politics and the history lessons, it's so important to remember the human cost. It's real, and it's absolutely tragic. This violence has left these deep, invisible scars, especially on the people who are most vulnerable. So, those tens of thousands of people who had to flee their homes, they have an official name: internally displaced persons, or IDPs. And that's a really important distinction because, unlike refugees, they haven't crossed an international border. That means there's still the responsibility of their own government, and that often leaves them in incredibly difficult and unstable situations. And the impact is just devastating. A 2024 study of people living in these IDP camps found a massive mental health crisis. Just let this sink in. Almost 2/3, 66% of the people surveyed, are suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. These are the kind of deep, lasting wounds that you can't just fix with a political handshake. Which brings us right back to where we started, back to this new government. And the central question here: what does peace actually mean to people who've lived through this kind of trauma? Is it just about getting a seat at the political table, or is it something much, much deeper? This quote here really gets to the heart of it all. For a lot of people in the Kuki-Zo community, this isn't about the spoils of politics. The goal isn't just to get one of their own a fancy title like Deputy Chief Minister. No, the real demand is for a lasting political settlement, something that actually addresses their fears about security and their need for self-governance, like their call for a separate administration. So, we're left with this one final and really crucial question. Is this new power-sharing government a real, genuine step toward healing the deep, historical wounds in Manipur, or is it just a temporary political patch? Just papering over huge cracks that are probably going to break wide open all over again.